Hi everyone, welcome to the Psychology of Dating podcast. You're listening to Nadine Newkirk, that's me, and today we're going to be talking about when it's helpful to take a break from dating and when it might be helpful to actually persist and keep going. Before we jump into that, I want to remind you, if you have a topic or a question that you'd like to hear about on this podcast, feel free to reach me via my website, nadineNewkirk.com. And you can write me a message at the contacts page and fill in a form. I'll put a link to that in the episode show notes, and I really look forward to hearing any hurdles, road bumps, questions, things that are going through people's minds. If you're thinking it, chances are someone else around the world, someone listening to this podcast is going to be thinking it as well, and it can really benefit others too. So don't feel shy to reach out. Okay. Today I want to talk a little bit about some signs when it's helpful to stop, take a break from dating, and also what to do while you're on the break and when to end the break from dating. So first of all, when would it be helpful to pause? A big one is if you start getting dating burnout. Signs of burnout are the same if you were to get burnout from a workplace, if you are burnt out from being a parent, whatever you're doing in life, we can get to an end of the road where our battery is completely exhausted. Signs that you might notice this is you're having consistent negative thoughts, that you're trying to go on dates and push yourself, but you're just bombarded by these thoughts of what's the point? No one's going to like me. That date was terrible. It's really hard to access any other types of thoughts, neutral or positive. You might notice physical symptoms. You might have difficulties with sleep, oversleeping, undersleeping. If you've had a lot of stress in dating, your body might have been producing a whole lot of cortisol and adrenaline. And this can actually affect your sleep cycles. So early signs before burnout is where you can fall asleep okay, but then suddenly you get that jolt like adrenaline and you're awake and you have insomnia in the middle of the night. And maybe you have racing thoughts about the dating situation, wondering if someone's going to text you or what happened in that relationship. Your mind is ruminating. It's looping it over and over again. It's really hard to redirect your mind. You might notice that your appetite changes, increase or decrease. You might notice that you feel more sluggish or apathetic. It's harder to do activities that you enjoyed. And you can also get a whole lot of physiological sensations. So maybe your body just feels heavy. That fatigue is really in your limbs. Or maybe your mind feels kind of blank or racing thoughts. Maybe you notice your heart rate. Maybe it's racing. Or you get feeling anxious out of nowhere. These are all different signs of dating burnout and times where you might want to consider to pause and just take a bird's eye view of what's going on. Other factors that might link into you taking a break from dating is if you've got a major life stressor going on at the moment. So that could be moving house. I recently moved house, got sick at the same time, as well as my baby getting sick, and my husband got sick as well. All three of us sick on moving day. And the chaos of boxes everywhere. You can't probably get food from the kitchen. You don't know where any of your clothes are. It's also just a bit of a readjustment being a new place, a new neighborhood, getting to know where all your local shops are. It takes some time and adjustment. I'm now third weekend. I'm just starting to get my feet again, starting to feel a bit better from the sickness. And I would not have been able to focus on anything else in that time. And if I did, it wouldn't have been very effective. So if you are trying to persist and keep going on dates, even though you've got a major work project where you're working crazy hours, maybe you're moving house, maybe you're sick or your family's got some health issues, you're a carer at the moment. If there's a major life stressor, it's time to pause, just focus on that and then come back to dating. But what you want to do is be careful, because we can always have issues in life. We can always have things going on. And you want to be able to identify what's the difference between an acute life stressor or chronic. So acute is, imagine like a wave, it's going to go up, it has a peak. You've got this major work project, it's really, really busy, and then you come back down the other side and maybe, it lasts for a month, but once that work project's calmed down, then you have more headspace. So that's an acute time. So you might want to pause dating for that month and then come back to it. But if you have a chronic stressor, like maybe your work for the last year, you have been flat out, you've been slammed, you will need to then consider, do I actually need to make some major life decisions here, changes? Can I make any changes with work? Or how can I ramp up my self-care even though things are busy so I feel a little bit calmer and can make some more space for dating? So if something's chronic and ongoing, it's not going to be helpful to keep pausing dating because the stress is still going to be there. So that's where you really need to think, bird's eye view, long term, how can I make some sustainable changes? Another factor might be if you've got a major blockage, and this is where you'd want to take a break from dating. For example, if you have consistent negative thoughts that are looping, they're the same over and over again, and everything you've tried, every angle you've tried, different dates, different ways to go on the apps or meet people in person, those same negative thoughts are really blocking you. An example of this could be rejection sensitivity, where the emotional pain of someone ending a date or maybe saying a slight judgmental or critical comment in a date can be excruciating. And it can lead to things like people pleasing as well, because it feels really hard to be rejected by someone. So then over people pleasing comes in, trying to keep that person, to keep dating you, and you might start to override some of your values, not express your opinions. Even maybe someone's ended a date and you weren't that interested, but it hurts and you can't stop thinking about wanting to get back with them, even though when you bird's eye view, you wouldn't really want to continue on that date. But because that rejection feels so strong, it just kind of overrides and clouds everything that you're doing in dating. So that's one situation where it would be helpful to take a dating break and then be able to actually really address some of those core blockers before continuing. Another major blocker might be heartache. Maybe you're trying to persist in dating, although you're still really hurting or really trying to process some difficult emotions from a past relationship. And as much as they're painful and you want to skip ahead and not feel any of those and just jump into the next relationship to feel better, in the end, what it does is actually create more pain because you're not effectively dating. You might be bringing that past relationship and hurt into the new dating scene and not actually be progressing. And you're not giving yourself time to process those emotions, which will come up at some point and sometimes in inconvenient times. So there you have some reasons and time points where you might want to stop and take a pause from dating. Now, what do you do when you're on that dating break? And I've got a few tips here. The first one is addressing self-care. We all know that if you haven't slept for several nights, if you're not eating well, you haven't moved your body, if you've been socially isolated or not seen friends, or been doing any tasks that give you a sense of joy or purpose, that's going to be affecting your mental health, your physical health, and it's kind of like you're trying to use a machine that's then not well oiled. So you've got a robot and the programming works really well when, the joints of the robot are oiled and, it's been charged, fully charged the batteries, and then it can do the task that it needs to do. And our bodies are the same. That if we don't recharge our bodies, if we don't make sure that our muscles, our organs, our brain is getting all the nutrition and the movement that it needs, you're going to be working from a place which is much more difficult. It's much more of a slog. Your thoughts might all be clouded. It might be physically uncomfortable in your body, and that's distracting. So you can refer back to my podcast episode, 5 Pillars of Nervous System Health, Self-Care. And here I outline in detail 5 core things that you can do to kind of reboost yourself. Another tip for when you take a dating break is to address any of the major life stresses that you have. So this is giving yourself permission to pause, keep doing some self-care, that's always necessary, but just focus on that one major life stressor that you have. Because if you try and move house and you've got boxes and chaos everywhere and then throw yourself into 2-3 other tasks, it's going to be really stressful because you're trying to find the documents that you need for your job, but the office is a complete mess. It's a storage room at the moment and things like that. It's better to focus on packing away, clearing those boxes, having resettled into the new place, and then focus on the next task. So give yourself permission if you've got an acute stressor to really just focus on that. The third tip, imagine that you are driving a car and you've got Google Maps up and you typed in the destination and you know when you have that thought, you're like, did I actually type in the right destination, or has the Navi rerouted me and I'm now going in a completely different direction? So if you find that you're getting a bit lost and stuck in dating, we want to double check the Navi, double check the Google Maps. So first of all, checking your goal, re-looking at, am I moving towards the relationship that I'm wanting? And what is the relationship that I'm wanting? That's really important to clarify. And also making sure that you're looking at important deal breakers, red herrings. You might be so focused on, I can't date someone, centimeter shorter than me. I can't date someone centimeter shorter than me, that you're missing out on someone who's kind, consistent, can share similar hobbies or values as you, and you could actually have a fulfilling relationship, but you're blindsided by these kind of false deal breakers. One episode that can help you clarify your goal and where you're heading to is listening to the one where I talked to Amber Gruberman, the dating coach, and she talks about 5 elements which help a relationship thrive, and that can be helpful as like a tick box to think when you're dating people. So you've checked your goal, then you also want to check the route, make sure that Navi's actually on track. And you want to make sure that you're not choosing the option where you're trying to maybe cut corners. You don't want to pay for the toll roads, so you're taking this convoluted detour route where you're going to be stuck in traffic for hours. It's going to take you 4 times as long. The emotional stress and pain and road rage is not worth it in the end. The cost is not worth it in that way. So that might be you've had difficulties with negative thoughts and you've tried things yourself and it's not working. One way to pay for the toll road and get to where you need to a lot quicker and with less pain is to actually get help or support from someone. It could be a coach, it could be a psychologist, it might be opening up and talking to someone you trust. It could be starting to listen to podcasts. You're listening to this one, so this one, also branching out to others. It might be getting some books by experts in the area. So filling your mind with different ideas and different options and ways that you can get to your goal. What we don't want to do is keep trying the same thing if it's not working. So we want to just give our minds a little bit of perspective, a little bit of some different tool that we could test out and try. Lastly, you don't want to keep your dating break open-ended. This is a trap. You could then keep going and pushing it, and life will always fills up with other tasks and other stresses, and before you know it, you've taken a break for 6 months, but you're still feeling guilty, or there's that niggling part of you that's saying, hey, a relationship is still really important to me. And it'll eventually catch up where you'll feel sad or you won't feel as connected even though you've got people around, because that one key part of your life, you're not chipping away towards it. So what you would be really helpful is to think about, okay, stop. I've noticed I'm not going where I need to in dating. Make a little bit of a plan. What could I do in this dating break? Am I going to aim to do some self-care and I'm going to contact a professional? Am I going to give myself a month with this work task? Really clarify, what am I trying to achieve in this break? And remember, we don't need to aim for perfection. We don't need to have completely perfect self-care. We don't need to have done every single task in our life before we go back to dating. We just need to be good enough. So that's where you still have a little bit of energy in the bank and you can chip away at week by week doing something towards dating. And once you've given yourself a bit of a time frame, if you're driving somewhere, you're not going to say, I'm just going to keep driving. I don't care if it takes me 5 weeks to get across the other side of the city. No, you're going to say, okay, I need to get to this cafe by 3 p.m. and what's the routes and how can I figure out what I need to do to get there? And if suddenly there's, a diversion in the road, you might need to reassess. So it's okay if you take a dating break. Maybe you say, I'm going to take 2 months, and you get to the end of 2 months and you think, oh, I've made a bit of progress, but actually I'm still really struggling with this insomnia. And there's a few things more I want to do. I want to, contact the GP, try the melatonin, whatever it is you need to do. So then reassess, but make a new goal, make a new time frame, and then always come back to it. And be honest with yourself. If you keep just shifting because maybe there's a bit of fear or doubt, but it's not actually something major that you should be stopping and pausing for, then it's important to go back into dating. Okay, everyone, I hope these tips were helpful. It was lovely speaking with you all, and I'll see you again next week.